Now I'm just going to introduce our three other panelists. So this is Lex Schultz. Lex is a senior in Saybrook. We have Nyché Andrews, who is a junior in Brantford, and Kyle, who is a junior in Pearson, and I thought he was in Ben Frank, so I'm really sorry, Kyle. But I understand now that he's in Pearson, so I will not make that mistake again. So thank you guys so much for joining us today, and I'm going to let Kyle and Nyché take it.
All right, DG. Nanouk, how are you? I'm so happy that you're here from one Inuit heart to another. Yes. I told you yesterday that the last time there were two Inuit people was when, on this campus, was when my sister was here. So,
I cried. I'm so happy.
So having you here is like having my sister. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to kind of show the audience a little bit more about your background, what you think. We got to see a little bit yesterday at dinner about how rich your heart is, and we all left that dinner feeling that. And so I'm just really excited that you're here. And so my first question is, you know, in Alaska we always ask, where are you from? It's to kind of connect you to a place, but also to see if we might be cousins. But so I just want to see, how would you say where you're from?
I would say that I'm intertribal. I feel like that I'm from everywhere, but my home is Anchorage, Alaska. My family is from Barrow, Alaska, which is way far away, 1,000 miles or so. And my family is living in Point Barrow, Alaska, and Browerville, which my family settled and brought about as a village. And I would say that I have many places, many homes, but my heart is in Alaska, the whole place, and not just one specific place. And I'm very happy to know it very well, and to explore it, and to go back all the time and volunteer and give at the university and at the college in Barrow and teach.
I'll pass it on to Kyle, who's our other Alaskan on here.
Hi, it's such a privilege to have you here, and it's an honor to have another Alaska Native on campus. It's a very, very special thing, and we really appreciate you being here. For my first question, I was going to ask, how do you feel your identity as someone who is Alaska Native has impacted your style of poetry?
Well, being an Alaska Native, my style, I would say, I don't have a style yet because I'm still learning and I'm still in that process. So being Alaskan, I'm also learning still about my culture because I was adopted out to a Air Force family, non-Native family. And so I'm always returning home.
In that sense of circular motion and stepping out into the land and the landscape. Thank you.
Can you guys turn on the handheld for a second?
How has your identity as an Alaska Native person shaped your style of poetry?
Okay. Well, I was introduced to ancient Chinese and Japanese poetry first by my wonderful professor, Arthur Zhee, who's Chinese American. And with Arthur, he knew that the aesthetic of the culture, the Chinese culture, is very close to the Alaska Native Inupiaq plays. And so with that, I learned how to read some, not all, but some symbols of the language of China. And they work with pictures and script and symbol. You know, it's we all agree that language, we say this is an apple, we all agree it's an apple. and or in the languages of the world, we have a word that specifies that and we have a symbol. In the International Phonetic Alphabet, I'm able to read the language, not very well, but okay, enough to understand. And those symbols are a metaphor for me of life and of living. And my style of poetry I'm not, I don't see in my head a definitive style, but I do know that it's changing and it'll change and become some other style. My next book, I'm working on only 10 poems yet, but it's very, very different with no Alaska in it. So it's very, I'm exploring. And so I can't say that I'm there yet, but I'm very lyrical. And the drum helps me from home. I play the music and the throat songs of our people, and our drum from home, the box drum from the Brower side of the family. And my cousin carries it now, and it's just been brought out again. It's been in hiding in place of protection for many, many, many years. And my family just brought it back out to live in the world again. And it's been traveling. So that style, that drum, that musicality and that lyricism is in the language because I play with assonance and consonants, the sound of language, the hard sounds, and then the soft sounds of vowels. And with that, I'm able to create the sounds of our language. Not the symbols, but the sounds of the music and the drum and the harsh, like the throat, the guttural and glottal stops of our language, which I have trouble speaking, but Iñupiaq. You know, we have this throat, and I'm able to bring that to the poetry in English, and then it's a lyric, it's a song. And then I feel like I'm home, and I keep playing that music from home, and it helps me then. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does my mic still work?
I think so, yeah.
Lex, would you like to ask the next question?
Yeah, so you mentioned that you were adopted, and I too am someone who was adopted by white parents as a Native person, and I find it comes up a lot in my poetry, and I've seen it as a sort of way of coming home and a constant way of reconnecting. And I'd love to hear more about your story and how you find it comes out as a motif in your writing, because I did notice, especially when I first read Corpse Whale a couple of years ago, I saw a lot of the adoption story in there, and I'd just love to hear more about it.
Yeah, well, I was adopted at 2 weeks old, and I met my blood family at 30. My mother had me at 30. I was at a conference with the American Higher Education Consortium, American Indian Higher Education Consortium in Washington, D.C., learning to lobby and advocate for tribal funding for the tribal colleges. And so I did learn how to walk Capitol Hill and bring, I was a page, and so I could bring bills to the president. And that way I was able to meet Senator Ted Stevens, the great senator that has gone on. He has done so much. He had done so much for our people, and I've read all about him. And when I met him, before I left Montana, I was in school there, and before I left there, the elders told me, Deidre, you're going to meet a lot of influential people. Ask them what you need to ask them. I didn't know the questions to ask, but when I got there and met Senator Ted Stevens, I jotted down on a piece of paper a sticky note, and I saw this in some movie where the sticky note, the sticky side was on the outside, and when you shake their hand, it sticks to their hand. And I wrote on there, I was adopted. I wrote my birth date, my social security number, and Anchorage, the Alaska Native, the Native hospital there, and the old hospital. And then when I shook his hand, it stuck. I just wrote my birth date, just the simple basic things. And I said, will you help me find my family? I just found out I had cancer. It was many years ago. And I just also got a call from my doctor today that says he thinks I beat cancer. So I'm very celebratory today for that. But when I met him, when I shook his hand, he looked at the note and said, and he put it in his pocket. Well, I asked him those questions that I needed for my health because I needed those records of health records to know if we've ever had cancer in our family, and we haven't. I'm the first. And so it's amazing to me, my adoption and being the first in my family to be adopted and the first to have cancer. And so that love and that sickness married. And it also is a direct metaphor for the adoption because I'm very much loved and I love my non-native family, but they passed on. And now I have my Iñupiaq family that I met at age 30. I'm 57 years old now. And at age 30, I got to meet them. But it was Senator Ted Stevens' influence. A month after I left the internship in DC, he sent me, I asked him to help me with the adoption papers. Legally, I had been working on that to find my family, spiritually and for health reasons then. And he sent me my original birth certificate and my adoption birth certificate, which for years I was trying to receive just to find out where I was from and who I was from. And he gave that gift to me. He gave the gift of knowing my family. I went in ceremony in Montana with the elders, and they told me, they said, DJ, it's time for you to go home now. You're going to meet your family. Excuse me. You're going to meet your family. And when you do, come back, and you can heal from that. And so I went to Alaska right away. I dropped everything in school and went to Alaska. I had done my classes and went to summer school in Anchorage at the university, and I worked at Costco for my food because I was a food server, and I was serving samples out to everybody. And then they said the leftovers I could take home and eat. So I was making just a little bit at minimum wage and eating food from Costco as I was working, and I brought it home. And I was very, very poor all my life. And so when that happened, I went home and I'm an avid snowboarder, and I've been snowboarding for 27 years. And I learned at Alyeska from Hawaiians, which brought is it boa wood or koa wood? I'm not sure. But they brought their boards from Hawaii that they carved and made. And they're very light like driftwood. They're very buoyant, and they glide if you wax them across the snow. So much better than plastic or what they make the boards out of now. And they were long boards, so they were very different. And so I learned to snowboard, and I lost my teeth. I had a horrible crash just 2 years ago, and I don't board anymore because I hit a ponderosa pine about this big, and my teeth are still in the ponderosa pine in Montana at Glacier National Park, hiking up the mountain with no lift. We hiked up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get to the top just to make it, where the snow was perfect to come down one time. So it took us a very long time to get up on the hill, on the mountain, and then one trip down. So it was very weird. And I went home with no teeth. And I'm working with no teeth serving food. And so I just was going to the doctor. And when I was there at the hospital, this elder said, oh, you have a lot of family here. And I had just changed my name in court in Montana because I had got the original birth certificate, so I knew who I was and my family's name. So I changed my name as an adult name, my namesake, and is my father and my mother. I took those names because I knew we had namesakes, but I didn't really know mine. And I learned later it was completely different, but I took nanouk, which is polar bear, and okpik, which is snowy owl, and those names I carry, and those stories I love to create about them. But while I was there, the elder told me, she said, oh, you have family here. And I said, oh, well, I don't know my family. I was adopted. She goes, oh. And she puts in my vital statistics in the computer, and she says to me, oh, it looks like I know all your family. I'm from Barrow. And she says, oh my gosh, she goes, you have a family member in the hospital right now that you can meet, and I'll take you up there in a half hour. Can you meet me back here? And I was just like, and this is only a month after I arrived, and to Alaska. And I was like, okay, I didn't really have a choice. It just happened. So I'm waiting outside her door, sitting on the floor, just like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. So she brings me up there in a half hour, and she says, go in. I walked in first. I walked into the hospital room, and this lady stood who was less than 5 feet tall. And all I could say to her, we had the same short haircut, the same face. And she said to me, I said to her, my birthday is May 17th, 1966. And she sat there for a few minutes, and she said, oh my God, you're my daughter. And with that, within a half hour, all my female relatives were there in the hospital, enveloping me with love from that adoption. And I want to share that story with you because it's so powerful, and it was granted to me in a way that I would never have thought. But that spirit of love and connection can be binary, or not binary, duality, and white and dark. And that duality is there, we know, all the time. But I live in the light. And I want to share that light with you today, and know that you are on your way.
Thank you.
Know that.
Thank you, DG.
Be that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sunny, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, DG. That
Thank
was
you.
so beautiful. I felt that like in my heart. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Thank
just your
you.
powerful words.
Yeah.
I had a question, particularly going back to the point about your use of sound, or more so your relationship with sound, because when I'm writing, I find that sound and visuals and just kind of the senses in general are really important to me too. And I remember you talking about this at dinner last night. You said that you were somewhat of a senses poet, like that's kind of where you work from. And so pointing to a particular poem.
Yes.
Let me find it. Horizon at Duck Camp. So there was one line in particular that really just kind of stood out to me, and it was aluminum foil to a filled molar, it twinges metallic. Like, I think with your poetry, something that I've found is there's no way to not be in your body when you're reading it. Like, you can see the images, you can hear the sounds, like, you can feel it physically. And so I'm kind of just wondering, like, what is your relationship to sense when you're writing, and how does that kind of influence your work?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was taught by Arthur Zee that you use the sensory detail and you use it all the time. Sight, touch, hearing, sound. I'm forgetting the other ones right now. I'm a little bit flustered because I don't know.
The smell?
Yeah,
Smell.
smell and taste.
Mm-hmm.
And so I use those sensory details to bring the humanness to the work, and it grounds the piece. And that way, the musicality marries with that, and I'm able to write with the drum and know that beat, know that syncopation and that sound. I clash it, I bring it together in slant, but it's always clashed with the hard and soft, the vowels and the consonants. And when you say Iowa, there's a lot of slowness there. But when you say Kaktovik, there's a lot of hardness there. And so that marries within me something of my language that I hear in the language, and that process allows me then to enter and play with it and just live there and ruminate and be there in that sound. And that's because of the drum, and also using the sensory details of, I use sight, the landscape. I use sight to see the universe. I use sight to see below the ground. But then I use hearing with the birds and the sounds of their language. And then I taste the maktak that I'm not acquainted with, but I love the taste. I can't eat seal, the seal, but it's a strange, I think I didn't grow up with it, but I have tried it, and I don't refuse, because that is a part of life. And then I use smell. My real namesake is Rose. So roses come up in my work quite a bit, but they're hidden and they're not always found. And that is a way for me then to open up to the world and say, smell me, it's okay, it's a rose. And then I use taste. Oh no, what's the next one? Sight, sound, taste, smell. Oh, the smell, the rose, and then touching. And I think of the whale again. And when I touched its skin and its flesh, I was able to then have the tactile sensibilities to write in specificity with that. And that sensory detail is very important in poetry. And we should all use it, because we are all human, and we have those senses. We're all the same. And we carry that as one.
Thank you so much, DG.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, so, is it on? Yeah, okay. Is it? No? Okay. So my question is going back to how education has shaped your life. You talked about learning from professors and mentors, all the way from learning how to snowboard by some native Hawaiians. And so I wanted to ask, how has education shaped the stories that you want to tell and the goal of your stories?
Well, I take education very seriously. I am an avid student of life. I am learning all the time, and I'm not a professional. I'm not someone who's an academic. I'm an artist. I don't teach very much, but I do workshops and craft talks. But the classroom to me is daunting. I've done it before and I'm just scared, you know? But, you know, I'm an artist and I work at home, and working at home is quiet. I have a cat. I can play, you know, Beethoven as loud as I want, or play throat songs by Tanya if I want, Tanya Taggart. And then, I think I'm saying her name right. And then that deep voice of throat singing, if you haven't heard that, it's like the monks chanting, and that bellow. And it's also like a didgeridoo from Australia, but that sound of deep voice. And when they sing, they're in duel with each other, and until one of them laughs. And so that to me is amazing concept. Until one of them laughs. Let's bring that joy and laughter and sound and song to everyone. And that's why I'm here. That's what I am. A conduit for language and sound and poetry. And education for me is one and the same. I'm constantly learning because I'm reading the dictionary as my sort of quote unquote Bible. And it is spiritual to me. And each word I learn, I look up in Iñupiaq and see if we have that same word. And I try to figure out that translation by doing it 4 times. And it seems to come across very well, but there is still that distance and that transference that occurs in language, but it's disjunctive, and you know, English is so fragmented today. We're living in a fragmented world, and with the language, I use that fragmentation and I play with it and make it disjunct and make it surreal and harsh and hard. It's not, nature is not always beauty, it's harshness. It's the trap inside the animal that is caught in the stomach and it bursts. So the animal doesn't feel it, but it then takes its life. And it's not beautiful. It's something that we do that is very ugly, but it's the world, it's the universe and where we live. And it's okay, it's okay. So that's where I reside with education. It's okay. Learn everything you can and devour it. Take what you need, leave the rest along the way. I keep repeating that, but it's so true. Take what you need, leave the rest along the way for those who need it. And I also live there. Thank you.
I was really curious about what headspace you're in when you're writing, and in particular, if writing poetry is something that gives you energy, or is it something that you put energy into?
Both. It's a reciprocity. It's daunting energy to write the piece, edit the piece, and work it through many, many, many versions, many edited pieces to the clarity and conciseness that I bring to the page. And I was just at the Beinecke looking at Arthur Zee's work, my professor, who's been my professor for over 20 years. And I was able to go there for only a half hour. And they didn't bring any Inuit things to me. And I just found out yesterday that they do have them, but you have to order them. And it takes a day, and I haven't had a day free. So I'm going to come back and research really hard. But I was able to be with my professor Arthur Zee's manuscripts and see on the page what he was doing in his edits. And he would have maybe 30 pages of work that was edited. And I thought, wow. And over the time of his life, he has written so much work that I have a lot of work to do and a lot of responsibility. I'm only on my 2nd book. I mean, there's a lot to do, and I'm 57, and I'm finding out when I get home whether I beat cancer, so life will continue even after. And these things will be kept, like in the Beinecke or wherever they put them, I don't know. But they'll be kept for the next generations to come. And I can share that life with them as well.
So you mentioned your professor, Arthur Zee,
Mm-hmm.
and he wrote the foreword for your first book, Corpse Whale. And there was something that really stuck out to me in the foreword, the idea of a poem as a fossil record. And I've noticed you have lots of bones and death and body parts, especially of animals, in your work, which I really love. That's my favorite type of poetry, is the type where it's about things that aren't beautiful, it's grisly, it's visceral. So I'd just like to know more about your thoughts on your work as a fossil record for, past things, lives, etc.
I work in a dream state all the time. I wake up early in the morning at 5 a.m. and as soon as I wake up, I write because I'm in this fog. I'm in a squall, like in King Lear at the end, where I'm just in this confusion and this place of dream and madness almost. And when I get up, that's the first thing I do is write. And what comes from that dream state, in that whiteout storm, that blindness and that light, I bring to the page, and I don't know where it comes from. I don't know. But I do feel like that conduit, that hollow bone in which one sits beside me from 10,968 days ago, and one sits beside me here, 20 days ago, and one's the past and one's the future. I'm in the middle, and I'm the present, and I'm a conduit of a hollow bone, because bones to me can be hollow or full of marrow, and that's life. We love marrow. That is, we eat it. It's succulent, and we just love it. It's so beautiful, but it also can be hollow. And I feel like I'm a conduit for that. But also, I feel like these fossil records are here and there and everywhere. And these bones I keep finding. These bones everywhere, and I don't know where they come from either, but it is a record, and no matter where we are, past, present, or future, or in that circumcollusion, that circular motion of the universe, no matter where we are, we can find our way, and I'm still finding my way. I'm not perfect. Everything is chaos in my life, but I am human, and I know all of us are, and I go there.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I was wondering on that question, actually. So saying that you come into your writing process like out of sleep pretty much, and like feeling like you're in this dream state. I feel like for a lot of poets that I like really look up to, like you being one of them, like this is just really interesting learning about this from you, because I know like Joy Harjo also talks about in her work like feeling like dreaming is a way of kind of receiving poetry. And in my culture, my Anishinaabe culture, they say that when you're dreaming, it's easier for spirits to kind of come through and like meet you halfway. And so thinking about what you had said earlier about your poetry being about embodying humanness, when I was reading your poetry, I really got the sense of like, I didn't feel like a lot of insertion of the self, and it felt like I was reading from the perspective of like our other than human relatives almost, or about them at least. So I guess I'm kind of curious about how you see like these relatives kind of coming to you through this, like through your dreaming, and how that allows you to then really kind of sit in your own humanness, but then also kind of speak to maybe the relationship, or how you, I don't know how I want to phrase this, but their life then becomes more visceral because you're able to sit in that humanness. So if you could just talk a little bit about that.
I've been on the edge of death for 13 years. When you're faced with that mortal grossness, that mortal thing that we always have, that beauty also, you're faced with a dynamic that is good, but you're traveling, and that travel allows a segue. You can go through at all times like that conduit, and you can go through that space in dream state. One of the books I really love is Galway Cannell's Book of Nightmares, because each poem is a dream. And I learned in his work that you can do that. It's a book of nightmares, and you can use the language and the dream state to your advantage, and the ancestors we know are right here around us, closely. They're closely somewhere around. And that I can take the strength, and they come to me in these dreams. These dreams are ugly and scary and angry and loving and hatred, and then peace, and then resolution, and then I can write from those dreams and bring it to the page and share it with the world. And that is also, I looked up at my favorite book also is the Princeton Encyclopedia of Poetry and Poetics. It's about this thick, and it's about one font. And you're just reading like this, and my eyes have been ruined because I read it all the time. And they have a section in there that is the dream. And so I've read that so many times about what is thought to be a dream and what I see as a dream is completely different. And how can I marry those differences and find a way, to understand how to write. And I try to write in a very different way than what is written in the Princeton. And I break the rules all the time. I've learned the rules, so now I can break them and just let them go and make it slant, make it new, as has been said by other beautiful poets before, Ezra Pound and yes, others. But yes, this dream state, I find myself daydreaming as well. And I walk around and I'm in a daydream, and it comes like that, and it goes like that. It's more of a feeling than a thought. And then that rawness enables me to make, I hate this word, logic, or sensibility, for me then to make it real and bring it to the page so everyone can understand in such a way that is peppered and dappled everywhere in the ripples of language. Yeah.
Thank you so much, DG.
Mm-hmm.
You have such a beautiful way of describing landscapes and scenes, and I think you have our audience on the edge of their seat just waiting for the next word you say. And every time I'm with you, I feel like that. And so I wanted to ask, is there a landscape or a location that's real or not that you think of? And if you think of it, does it draw strength for you? Or is there something that's the opposite, something that is somewhat draining to think about as a landscape? And how does that impact the way you view and write?
Well, in Anchorage, across Cook Inlet, is Sleeping Lady Mountain. And for the people there, she's waiting for her husband to come back from the sea, and she will rest there until he does arrive, and then she'll awaken and be with him again and be in the world again. And here, when I came here, I think one of you told me this story about the sleeping giant mountain, and that grounded me. And the mountains for me, when I got here, I was like, oh my God, where's the mountains? Where's the direction? I can only find the mountain. Where's the ocean? And so I can only find my direction if there's land or ocean, natural landscape, not concrete, brick, rock, mortar, steel, and things that buildings are made out of. So I've been discombobulated and lost the whole time I've been here. And fortunately, we have these volunteers that show us everywhere we go. But every time I look up at the buildings, they all look the same to me. And I know they're organic, and I know that we are related through carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, the 4 basic elements of life, inanimate and animate objects. So we are relatives. And so I asked the relatives of the space, the steel, everything to guide me, because I can't find the mountains or the ocean. And so that's kind of how I do it. Yeah, does that help? Yeah.
In reading your works, one of the things that I've been struck by is how you depict life and how rich the life within your poems are. How have both human and non-human beings impacted your life and enriched your work?
Wow. Well, things like the chair, like I was saying, are also moving particles of quantum mechanics. They are like a cork clashing a cork, clashing a cork. It's always in movement. So again, what's the question? I just forgot.
How have beings and like both human and non-human enriched your life and work?
Yeah. So I do know they're not alive, but they are my relative, and I can go to them and recognize that. And those elements, those 4 basic elements, know within me somehow what to do and how to interact with an object or a thing. But it comes naturally. It's not something I practice or anything, but it just comes naturally to me. And those things like a rock. I just was talking about a rock to one of my favorite girlfriend's parents, and they have a rock that is 93 million years old. That to me is astounding, because in the Inupiaq culture or Eskimo Inuit culture, we have been around maybe 12,000 years, and 93 million years is a long, long time. And I also will give them a rock in return, a special rock that I carry, and then give it to them as a grounding and a piece that they can use in prayer to the ancestors. And it's been in the Sivulliuqti family for many generations, where I learned my spiritual ways, because I went to college there and I didn't know. I grew up Catholic, and now I'm a recovering Catholic. But I didn't know the ways of home, Alaska, because I was adopted. So they took me in as family, and I followed the Sivulliuqti spiritual ways. And in their families, they have these rocks that are very special. Those rocks and those mountains, like the sleeping giant and sleeping lady, natural things, and like wood, like chairs and steel and plastic. There's man-made and there's natural. And man-made versus natural is very different. But the tool carries in it the spirit in which it was made, and that's by an unknown person. But it's very true. The tool is the key, and my tool is language. And playing with language. I often wanted to be a study of just language, of phonetics. And I didn't know I was going to be a storyteller until I realized that my stories were okay. It's okay. And, not and being intimidated and not being able to complete a full sentence at 30, being a hairdresser. And in high school, I had a very hard life, and not being able to grasp the English language very well. And I don't know why. I think because ancestrally, I'm supposed to be speaking Iñupiaq, but language, I learned English first, so it's very, very different. And that disperseness is like, it is a dream to me, and I can take it and own it then and just be. But that relationship is a reciprocity as well of things and man, a natural world. And I always say, we have this saying about like something raven is a raven, because we all agree upon that, as the scholars have said, Heidegger and some of those, Foucault, and some of the others in critical theory. And I do know that our language has been theorized and under this kind of, on a petri slate, glass under a microscope. And I do know that that relationship to thing and human and symbol is the tool and the way to go and the way I need to go to tell stories. And it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
I think about now is the time when we should open it up to audience Q&A if anyone has any questions for DG.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
I was just compelled to share that I lived in Anchorage.
Wow.
And I skied in Mount Alyeska. And I was from the South Central LA, and my mother decided to drive to Alaska. So there's this nostalgic connection. It's just wonderful.
Yes.
To hear you. I went to Fairview Elementary and Rabbit Creek.
Wow.
And it was a wonderful discovery and experience that I cherish in my life. And I'm developing a screenplay about a young boy that, his mother leaves South Central LA in the 70s and drives, and it was an awakening for me. And it was a beautiful culture, and I had an Inuit friend at Fairview Elementary named James, and I cherish the memory and the culture and the land. And I want to thank you, for your poetry and your courage.
Thank you.
And your embracing of the scope of the experience and the feeling and the all of that and the rawness of our existence. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That means so much to me, because I too have been with my family and driven once, but 22 times up and down the Alaska-Canadian Highway each summer when I was young.
Yes.
And so I know that journey.
Yes.
And that amazing journey is wilderness.
And it's terrifying
It's
too.
very scary.
Because some of the roads
nothing.
are like this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Wow.
And the frost heaves are so big, and the road's always in construction.
Yes, I know. And the windshield, I remember the windshield busting because of the gravel on the road,
Exactly.
kicking up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've lost so many headlights, our family.
Yes.
Things won't, especially hubcaps. There's a place on the outside where I forget where it is.
It's a burial ground for hubcaps.
Every
kind of
hubcap is there.
Yes.
And people that have lost them can go and look for those.
That's
So I feel
wonderful.
like a hubcap on a tire that is taking in all of that. And I do know your experience, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you
because
so much.
I also have learned from Kavikanam, the Black Arts Movement, and the Harlem Renaissance.
Mhm.
And the African American presence in my life is very, very close to me. And so I follow that Kavikanam way, the new way, the contemporary way. And they're very much my friends. I've learned from many African American teachers, and I aspire to many of your people.
And many learn from you as well. And it's
Thank
so
you.
enriching. Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you.
There's one up front.
So, DG, thank you so much for everything. And I just wanted to say I love the way you arborize language and expose and unearth sort of the hidden wonders and magic, in language and create new textures and colors. It's truly magical. And I guess my question is, out of all the words that you've read in the entire dictionary so far, which I'm sure there are neologisms coming out every single day, what is one word that you feel like you are still sort of amidst trying to figure out, that still confuses you, challenges you, makes you feel like you're still in pursuit, and you wish you had a more profound understanding of, but it's still forever sort of elusive to you?
Oh, wow. Well, Lingoism, the love of words is where I live. And in the dictionary, there's so many choices. And I would have to say my favorite word is change, because it's constant, like light. And that's another favorite word of mine. And with that, they marry. And there is blackness and there is unchange. So that space allows me then to explore and play and also take away and give. And it's something to me that I don't know, but I'm finding. But I love those two words, change and light, because we're always in change. We came from the light and we return to the light. And we're always in that constant change, and I am too. I'm still a student of life and still learning those basic things. Like I said, I'm not an academic and not a scholar, but I am a lover of words. And yeah, those two words are my very favorite. Thank you for the question, Jay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's been amazing to listen to you. I've laughed and I've cried multiple times both. And I would love to hear you talk more about this incredible way you approach the world, and whether this was something you've carried with you forever or something that you've learned and grown into during your time here.
That question, I was in ceremony in Montana, and this elder told me I have a white aura around me that glows, and that I am white. And I think of that as being a polar bear, my mother's namesake. And that white light and that aura and that whiteness of the snow. And seeing a polar bear on the snow, it's not the same kind of white, but it can be. And now they're not as white anymore, they're muddy and tan. I've seen them, and they're tan because it's melting so quickly. So my favorite color is white, and those colors give me strength, as the bear does, and as the snow. Because the snow can melt and be warm. Water is multi-changing and can be in very many ways. It can be frozen, it can be hot, it can be cold, it can be slush, it can be, and we have many, this is a cliche, but we have many words for snow, and many ways of seeing water. And water is our life. Water is the ocean. Water is where we are. And water, we are made of 98% water and 99% water. And that water also grounds me into, I'm always thirsty. And I don't know why, but I'm always dry and thirsty. So I'm always drinking water. And that water then is life. And that water is buoyant and changing at all times. And I also reside in that water. Yeah, if that makes sense. Does that help?
Hello, it's been an honor to get to hear you talk today. I also cried. I just kind of wanted to ask if you have any advice for people who, for various circumstances, are also on a journey to try and learn more about their indigenous roots and try to reconnect with that aspect of themselves.
Know the questions you have to ask, and then ask them, and relish in the answers you find. You're going to find many answers and many questions, but those questions are going to lead you to a resolution. And you are on your journey. You're on that movement. You're on that change, that road, that beautiful Volkswagen or something driving on the road. And as you go by, you're taking in the scenery all around you. Take that in and take it as your strength. And keep that, because you can, and it's okay. If you want to talk more in depth and more personal about it, I'd be happy to help you later. But I just want to say that you are unique. Each one of us in the world is unique, not just one of us. We're all special. We're all special. And on that journey, I would say, collect the rocks along the way that'll give you stability and that'll give you that groundedness to carry on, because it is hard. It's very hard to go through this journey, but it's also very easy to collect things and to carry them and then pass them to another person and give that gift to them also. Like the rock is a gift that I gave my best girlfriend, one of my best girlfriend's parents, or I'm giving them. And that rock is your strength. That element, that mountain, you're going to climb, but you're also going to come back down. But you could also go into the sky. There's many different ways you can go, and you'll find your way in that journey. And I would say just collect things along the way, whatever that might be, in whatever capacity in this world or the next or the past. Yeah.
Thank you. DG, I don't know if we have any more time for questions, but I just want to say agata teku for being here, for being my sister for a few days on this campus, for sharing your knowledge and your time and your spirit with everyone. Everyone here loves you.
Wow.
I think that's true. And I'm just so happy that I could sit right next to you and hear you talk. And thank you so much for the time you've given us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.